Hi and welcome. I'd like to offer a class that focuses on trying to release a little bit of pain and pressure that you might feel in your low back, particularly the SI joint, if you're not familiar with what that is. It's the joints at the top of your sacroiliac crest. So where your sacrum, the triangular bone there, meets the iliac crest, the crest of your pelvis that goes on both sides. There's the joint there that is a fused joint, but it is mobile, particularly in women, especially during different hormonal cycles and pregnancy. So that joint can get really angry at us if we don't give it a little bit of attention, positive attention once in a while. So we're going to work on that, a little bit of attention. So what we're going to need for today's class is blocks and a ball. It can be, this one is a particular type of fascia ball. You don't need to go get anything fancy if you don't already have it, unless you really want to get involved in that. Let me know if you do. I'll send you some links. But otherwise, a tennis ball will work, or if you have a pet, one of their balls, a dog ball. I don't know if cats use balls. Anyway, we're going to use one of those. And we're going to start our practice laying on our backs. You're welcome to use a cushion for your head if you want to, but it is not a requirement, or a blanket or a pillow, whatever you've got. So I'd like you to start laying down on your back and have your feet slightly wider than hip distance apart. Let your knees rest against each other and have your hands on your belly. Try to take a few big breaths to let your back start to ease into the support of the ground. We're going to use the ground for a little bit of feedback to help you feel when your body maybe starts to flare or round a lot. The firmness of the floor is a great tool, a great piece of equipment that we can use in our yoga practice. A few nice long breaths there. I want you to use your breath as a visual. Visualize your breath and try to think of it as like an explorer or a warming, glowing light that moves around your body, and use that exploration or the glowing light to move around and soothe and ease out or melt away any areas that you can let go of. So there might be some tension in your back, in your hips, in your jaw even. And the more tension that you can get rid of, and I know it's nearly impossible to get rid of it all, but try to get rid of as much as you can to give your body a great opportunity to receive a bit more positive, comforting movement. And as your body starts to feel a bit more comfortable being on the ground, slowly start to let your legs open out wide and let your arms come over and wide. So you're like a bit of an X shape. If your arms can straighten comfortably with them resting on the ground, go for it. If it feels better to have a bit of a bend in your elbows, that's also okay. But I want you to use that visual of your breath to lengthen across the cross body line. So use your inhale to visualize your left toes and your right fingers getting further away from each other as you inhale, and then getting heavier again as you exhale. And do the same for the opposite arm and leg. Inhale to lengthen the right toes and left fingers away from each other. Exhale to let them get heavy. And one more with all of your fingers and toes lengthening away from each other. And then exhale, heavy them all to the ground. Take your right hand now and place it just by your left collarbone at the front of your pec, front of your shoulder area. Give it a little bit of a massage there. Try to open up a bit of space. And on your next exhale, slowly glide your right arm down your left and let your hip roll, but keep your foot grounded, even if you roll just onto your toe. As you reach your body across that crossbody line, and then inhale to come back and open. Swap sides, left hand onto your collarbone or pec. Give it a little rub. Take a breath in. And then exhale to reach all the way down your right arm, rolling off your shoulder and your hip a little bit. But keep your foot reaching away from that hand. And then roll back open and take a big breath in. Right hand onto your left pec. Inhale. And reach all the way down. Exhale to come back to your back. And then left hand onto your right pec. Inhale to roll over and reach down your right arm. And exhale to come back. Take a breath in at that X shape in the center. Once again, lengthening your arms and legs. And then as you exhale, relax your body into the ground. Slowly bend your knees one at a time. Place your feet on the ground, but keep your feet as wide as your mat or even wider, especially if your legs are quite long. Moving only your left leg. So your right leg's going to stay still. Take a breath in. And as you exhale, let that left knee drop in towards your right. Turn your head a little bit to the right as you do this. And then slowly lift the leg back up and sticking just with the left leg moving and turning your head to the right. So your nose and knee are moving the same direction slowly and softly. 2 more of those. Stop at the middle after you finish those last 2. And on your exhale, start bringing your right knee down towards your left foot. Let your head droop down toward the left. And inhale to come back up. Exhale, let your knee go down and to the left. Inhale, back up. Exhale, down. And the last one. And exhale with your knees back at center. Walk your feet back toward each other. Bring your hands down by your sides. Dirty dog. Reach your arms up to the ceiling. Take a breath in to feel your shoulder blades widen. Exhale through your mouth with pursed lips. And let your tailbone slightly tuck as you do that. Inhale to reach up with your fingers. Exhale through pursed lips. Take another breath in. This time as you exhale, take your feet off the ground, shins parallel to the floor. Take your right hand and press it against your left thigh. Keep the bend in your right knee as you move at the hip. We're going to inhale to reach your right heel down and left arm open, adding that little bit of pressure with your hand on thigh, and then exhale back up. Inhale. Exhale. And one more. Inhale. And exhale. Reach both of your arms up. Left hand onto your right thigh. Keep a bit of pressure, hand to thigh, as you sweep your right arm overhead and your left heel down. Inhale. Exhale back up. Inhale. Exhale. Last one. Inhale. Exhale. Both arms up as you inhale. Heels back down to the ground as you exhale. Take your hands onto your front ribs at the lower point. And take a breath in here. Only your heels on the ground. And then exhale, lift your hips up. Inhale, lower almost to the ground. Trying not to let your ribs flare. And exhale, lift back up. And one more. Lower your hips back down. Shift your hips to the right first, and then roll yourself onto your left side. Come into the fetal position. Reach your arms forward. Maybe use one of your blocks as a bit of a pillow for your head. Have your knees bent. Shins stacked, knees stacked, hips stacked. And then lift up your right shin, your right leg, so it's just hovering above the ground. We're going to shift that right hip back so that your thighs are staying parallel. What are you doing? Your thighs are staying parallel as they move. And then shift your right hip forward. So you'll feel your bum like you're doing like a little bum nudge back behind you. And then as you glide your right thigh forward, it's like a little knee nudge forward. One more back. And one more forward. And stay forward, but then straighten out your right leg. Let it get to the ground. And then reach that top arm, your right arm back, and take a big breath in. And then as you exhale, take your right hip, shift it back, and then reach your right leg behind you as that top arm reaches forward. Bend your knees, shift your hip forward, and kick your top leg forward as your top arm reaches back. Bend your knees, shift your hip back, and then kick your leg back as you reach your arm forward. And one more time. Bend, shift, reach the leg forward, arm back. Bend the knee, shift the hip, reach the leg back, and your arm forward. Come back to center, bend your knee, and slowly roll yourself onto your back. Shift your hips over to the left side of your mat, and then roll yourself over onto your right side. Arms in front of you, knees stacked, hips stacked. And you want your knees to be somewhat in front of your hips. To then lift up your left leg, hover it in the air. Keeping your thighs parallel, glide your left hip back, little bum shove back. Glide your left hip forward, back, and forward. And one more, back, and forward. Keep your hip forward, straighten your leg and kick it forward. Reach your left arm back. Bend your knees, shift your hip back, and then kick your leg behind you as you reach your arm forward. Bend your knee, shift your hip forward, kick forward, reach back. Knee bends, hip shifts, reach back with your leg and forward with your arm. One more in each direction. And bend your knee and come back to stack your hips. Slowly roll back onto your back. Give your knees a little hug into your chest and sort of swirl your legs around in any direction. Movement is a great medicine to help your body feel great. But only you know how much medicine to take for your body. You'll know when your body's saying that's too much, and your body will definitely tell you when it's not enough. You need to learn how to listen to that little prescription, if that's what you want to call it. Take your feet back down to the ground. Roll to one side and slowly make your way up and around to hands and knees, please. Come onto hands and knees and have your knees hip distance apart and parallel. Move your blocks off to the side. I'm going to shuffle down a bit. Take a breath in to lift your sitting bones and your collarbones. Notice how I'm not saying to droop your ribs or belly. As you exhale, lift your ribs now and push down with your hands and knees. Inhale, lift your sitting bones and collarbones. Exhale, round your back. And one more inhale. And exhale. Walk your hands and knees a little bit away from each other so you're in a kneeling plank. And then lower down to your belly. Bring your elbows in front of you, forearms stacked, to rest your forehead on them, and lengthen your legs down the length of your mat. Take a breath in here, and as you exhale, let your pelvis get heavier to the ground, but not clenching your butt. Heavy pelvis lets your knees then bend, and with your knees bent, I want you to try to soften, so it's as effortless as is possible. And then try to use less effort again. Start to very slowly windshield wipe your shins side to side. And I say slowly, this is an intermittent shower. This isn't a heavy rainfall. Come back to center. Keep your knees bent, shins straight up and vertical. And then lift your head, and I want you to take your forearms to the ground, like a little bit of a sphinx. Elbows in front of your shoulders or just below, not behind, because that starts to feel a bit pinchy in your shoulders. And with your knees bent, I want you to let your chin lower, and then tuck your chin up into your neck as you push down ever so gently with your forearms. Slowly straighten your legs and lift your head all the way up and take a big breath in. Push down with your forearms just that little bit. Exhale, chin to chest. Bend your knees and maybe think about your ribs gently lifting just to lengthen your spine a bit more. Like you're trying to round a bit more. Inhale to lift. Straighten your legs. Exhale, chin down. Bend your knees. And one more. Straighten your legs. Stack your forearms. Turn your head to the right. And then slide your right knee out to the right, so your inner thigh's on the ground. And just take a few breaths here, just to try to let your right hip and pelvis soften and release and get heavier to the ground. Slowly straighten your right leg back down. Bring your head all the way up, over to the left then. Bring your left knee out and to the left. And take some slow breaths to let your left hip start to relax and heavy to the ground. Gently slide your left leg back. Bring your head back to center and glide your hands down your mat until they're by your lower ribs. Press yourself up to hands and knees. Take your knees and bring them forward underneath your hips, hands underneath your shoulders, and take one of your blocks, please. Place it underneath your left knee and have your toes tucked under so your shin can be roughly horizontal. And then take an invisible block under your right knee. Imagine there's also an invisible wall against your left hip. Without leaning too much into that wall, I want you to glide your right hip up and down, getting a bit of movement into that joint and getting your hips going. A little bit of rotation in the spine. So next time your hip is up, bend your knee as much as you can and start to make some nice big circles with your right knee. This time, step your right foot outside your right hand. Use your hand to help get it there if you need to. Come up to tented fingertips and start to just make some big circles with your pelvis. Take your circles the other direction. And then come back to stillness. I want you to take your blocks now and put one under your right hand. Lift up the block from under your left knee and lift up your knee so your legs are straight. With your blocks on the ground, reach your right arm up to the sky. If you feel safer with your knee on the ground, go ahead and do that. But try not to rest on your shoulder joint. Push down with that left arm and then reach up with the right. And your right hip might want to stay nice and high, but try to let it get heavy. So maybe that means a little bend in your back knee, and that's okay. One more breath here. Take your right hand back down to the ground. And I want you to step now your left foot in a little bit, but then turn the toes toward the center line. Take your blocks up to as high as they can go, if you can catch them. Front toes face forward, back toes face in, creating a bit of widening of your pelvis and your sitting bones. And I want you to take a big breath in all the way down into your sitting bones and into your sacrum, which might feel really strange. And as you exhale, fold a little bit forward. Inhale to lift your chest, lift your sitting bones, similar to a cat-cow movement in your spine, but it'll look totally different. Exhale to fold. And one more inhale. And exhale. Lift up part way, bend your front knee a little bit, and then pivot your back toes to face a similar amount of a degree, but outward now. Lift your arms forward and up, but stay with a bit of a forward hinge, so it's almost like a nice slope from fingertips to your back heel. Take your right hand and keep it on the thigh of your front leg. And with your other arm, your left arm, I want you to sweep over to the right, and then all the way out and open to the left. Over to the right. Try to keep that back heel down as you do this. You're really moving through that crossbody line. One more. Take your hands back down to the blocks. Pivot your back knee up, back heel up. Place your back knee down now. That's what I meant to say. And lift yourself up to a nice little lunge. With yourself in a lunge, take your shin to the ground, keep your tailbone heavy. And with your front thigh, I want you to keep your tailbone down and your ribs in and just glide forward and back. Trying to take a little bit of that tension out of the front of your thigh and front of your hip flexor. Next time you're forward, take your hands down to the ground and sweep your right leg all the way around, across, and tuck your toes under on the outside of the left outside of your mat. Toes tucked under, just push back a little bit. A few little pulses back in that direction. And then come back to hands and knees, please. Take your block under your right knee, toes tucked. Invisible block under your left knee, toes tucked. Invisible wall against your right hip so you don't shift your hips all the way over. And then glide your left thigh up so your hip shifts up and down. Up and down. Up and down. And then keep it up. Next time it's there, bend your knee a lot. Make some nice big circles with your left knee. This is where it's harder to not lean to the right. Step your left foot outside your hand. Help it get there if you need to. Come up onto tented fingertips and start to make some big circles with your pelvis. Change the direction of your circles. And come back to stillness now. Grab your blocks, one from on its own. Lift up your back knee and take that block out so your hands can be on high blocks. Step your back foot in and turn your toes to the center line. The wider apart laterally your feet are, the better balance you might have. And if your inner heel and the inner arch of your foot is lifted, that's fine. That's just tension. Try to straighten your front leg as you can and take a breath in. Lift and widen your sitting bones and your collarbones. Exhale, fold a little bit. Inhale, lift and widen. Try to relax down your bum. Exhale to fold. And one more. Inhale. And exhale. Lift up partway. Bend your front knee and turn your back toes out the same amount that they were turned in. Reach your arms forward and up for a bit of a warrior one. Keep that right hip reaching forward. But then take your left hand onto your thigh. Reach your right arm forward and think about the distance between right wrist and ankle getting longer as you sweep forward and over to the left. Keep that distance even as you reach open and to the right. Forward and to the left. Open and to the right. And one more. Take your hands forward. Place your hands back onto your block. Lower your blocks down. Pivot your back heel up. And keep your hands on your blocks. Reach your left arm up to the sky. And try to let your left hip get a bit heavier. And if that means your right knee bends a bit, that's fine. Push down with your right hand, reach up with your left, and let yourself just settle into that nice beauty of a twist. Take your left hand down to the ground. Take your right knee down to the ground. And then sweep that front foot all the way around, across and to the other side. Toes tucked. Push back and pulse a little bit. I do realize I'm doing things in a slightly different order on this side. It's hard to remember it all. But we're doing them all. Don't worry. Take that left foot and bring it all the way around again to that lunge and bring your chest up. Keep your hips heavy. Keep your tailbone down. And without leaning forward or sticking out your bum, glide your weight forward and back. Forward and back. Just trying to ease out some of that tightness that might be in your right thigh now. Those quad muscles and the hip flexor muscles can sometimes create a pull that shortens the front of your pelvis down, creating a bit of a forward tilt. And that can create more pull and strain and tension in your low back. So we're going to try to ease a little bit of that with this. And bring your hands forward. Next time your knees forward, hands back down onto the blocks. And take your left leg all the way back to hands and knees. Sit back onto your heels. And now we're going to take our legs around in front of us and grab a hold of our ball. Take your legs in front of you. Take your ball. And we're going to do this laying down just to keep it nice and gentle. So lay down onto your back, knees bent. Take that ball and place it under your right bum cheek. So I like to hold it sort of like, okay, sort of motion, so it doesn't roll away, under just the right bum cheek. And if you sort of move it around a little bit to the what's been called peak cheek, right about the middle-ish of your bum, where you get your glute minimum, glute medium, piriformis muscular area. And just let your weight rest on that. You can take your hand out, slowly let your weight sink down until you can almost ease to your full body weight. And then let your right knee go out and up slowly. Very similar to how we did at the beginning when the knee was going in, but now the knee's going out. And if you roll a little bit, that can also feel quite nice. You're in charge of how much pressure you put onto this, how long you roll onto this for. Feel free to pause the video and just hang out here for a while. There's a lot of other creators that make a lot of videos using these balls and the myofascial release techniques. This is a nice space holder though for when you're in between getting help from other professionals such as massage therapists or physios. It really helps ease out a bit of that tension when you get a bit of a runner's bum as well. Ooh, and hang out there for just a few breaths. Come all the way back up. Take your ball out from under your right bum cheek. Take your right ankle onto the left thigh now. And either stay like this, maybe put your foot, oh, where's the blocks? On a block. If that's still not enough for you, lift up your left leg and reach your arms around that left thigh to hold on to it, clasping your fingers, or use a strap around your thigh. Or maybe even just put that left foot against a wall, or get one of your friends to just hold your foot in the air. One more breath here. As you exhale, release that left foot back down. Take your right foot back down to the ground. Grab your ball. Grab a hold of it in whatever shape works for you. Lift your hips to then place that ball under the same point. It might feel like it's a different location. On your left bum cheek. Slowly take some time to let your weight settle down onto that. It's going to probably feel completely different. Most people are very asymmetrical, or slightly. I don't know many people that are actually perfectly symmetrical. If you are perfectly symmetrical, please let me know. I'd love to see you. Let your left knee start to lower out to the left. And maybe roll a little bit. Bring your left knee back up and out. A little bit of a glide of your pelvis, sort of left to right as you do this. so you can roll that ball all the way along the length of that piriformis muscle. And let yourself rest on that for just a few breaths. It might feel a little bit uncomfortable for a while. This is what they call type 2 fun. And then slowly bring that left knee back up. Take your ball out and off to the side. And take your left ankle onto your thigh. Stay there. Use a block, grab a friend, or hold on to your thigh. Whatever works for you. But just take a few breaths. In that supported reclined pigeon. Slowly release your right foot back down to the ground. Take your left foot back down to the ground. With both feet on the ground, now grab one of your blocks. You might need to use your feet to help you get there. Bend your knees, feet on the ground, lift your hips up so you can place the block under your sacrum. Let yourself just rest in a supported bridge pose for a few breaths. If you feel the urge to lift your block up higher or use a bigger cushion on top of the block, go for it. If you feel the urge to slowly let your legs straighten. But try to keep the space of your low back nice and long. So if you find that straightening your legs makes your low back lift and um, extend more, then try to limit that extension. We're trying to create space here, so maybe just wiggle out your legs if you're feeling like being still is too difficult. Slowly start to bend your knees a bit more. If they're not already, place your feet on the ground. Lift your hips up and remove the block. Gently place your hips back down. Then slowly ease yourself to one side and press gently back up to seated. Maybe take a moment to just windshield wipe out your knees with the 90-90 knees before bringing yourself back into service for the rest of your day. When you're ready to, come to bring your legs back underneath you and make your way up for the rest of your day, and hopefully with a happier, more mobile feeling back and hips. Thank you for joining me again today, and I hope you enjoyed that practice. Let me know if you liked it, and I'll see you again soon.